Did you know that the word history comes from the Greek word historia, meaning inquiry? It's all about knowledge acquired through investigation. And guess what? History is the study of the past. But hold on, it's not just one big chunk. We've got prehistory, proto-history, and history. Anything before writing? That's prehistory. History can be divided into different periods? Yeah, it's fascinating. There's something called prehistory, which includes the Stone Ages. But have you heard of proto-history? It's the period between prehistory and history when a culture or organization hasn't fully developed yet, but it's mentioned in written records. Take the Harappan civilization, for example. Their scripts remain undeciphered, but they're mentioned in Mesopotamian writing, making them part of proto-history.
Proto-history, a fascinating period that includes the Vedic civilization from 1500 to 600 BCE. But did you know that it also encompasses the Neolithic and Chalcolithic cultures? Archaeologists consider them all part of this intriguing era.
History isn't just about prehistory and proto-history. It's the study of the past after the invention of writing. And when it comes to ancient Indian history, we have some fascinating sources to reconstruct it. Non-literary sources like coins, archaeology, inscriptions, and even accounts from foreign travelers. And then there are literary sources, including religious and secular texts. The study of ancient inscriptions is called epigraphy. The Indian Stone Age is classified into three types. First, we have the Paleolithic Age or Old Stone Age from 500,000 to 10,000 BCE. Then, the Mesolithic Age or Late Stone Age from 10,000 to 6,000 BCE. And finally, the Neolithic Age or New Stone Age from 600 to 1000 BCE. But here's the exciting part. Archaeologist Robert Bruce Foote discovered the first Paleolithic tool in India, the Polavaram hand axe.
Know that after the Neolithic period in Indian history, there was a fascinating era called the Chalcolithic period? It's also known as the Stone Copper Age, and it lasted from 300 BCE to 500 BCE. But wait, there's more. Following that, we had the Iron Age, which spanned from 1500 BCE to 200 BCE. It's incredible to think about the advancements and changes that took place during these periods.
The Paleolithic Age, also known as the Old Stone Age, was a fascinating time in human history. It was during the Pleistocene period, or the Ice Age, when the Earth was covered in ice and the weather was incredibly cold. But in the tropical regions, where the ice melted, the earliest species of men could survive. In India, these early humans were called quartzite men because they made their stone tools from a hard rock called quartzite. They lived in open air, river valleys, caves, and rock shelters, and they were food gatherers, relying on wild fruits, vegetables, and hunting for survival. They had no knowledge of houses, pottery, or agriculture. However, in the Upper Paleolithic Age, we see evidence of art in the form of paintings. It's incredible to think about how these early humans used unpolished, rough stones to shape their world. During the Middle Paleolithic Age, our ancestors used tools like flakes, blades, pointers, scrapers, and borers. These tools were smaller, lighter, and thinner, and there was a decrease in the use of hand axes. But things changed during the Upper Paleolithic Age. It coincided with the last phase of the Ice Age, when the climate became warmer and less humid. This period marked the emergence of Homo sapiens and a boom in tool innovation. We're talking bone tools like needles, harpoons, parallel-sided blades, fishing tools, and burin tools. It's fascinating how our ancestors adapted to their changing environment. The Mesolithic period, also known as the Middle Stone Age, belonged to the Holocene era. It was a time of rising temperatures and a warm climate, which led to the melting of ice and changes in flora and fauna. But what's really fascinating is how the people of this era adapted. They started off as hunters, fishers, and gatherers, but then they took it a step further. They began domesticating animals and cultivating plants, paving the way for agriculture. And guess what? The first animal they domesticated was the wild ancestor of the dog. Sheep and goats were also commonly domesticated. Isn't that incredible? The Mesolithic era truly marked a turning point in human history. Mesolithic people lived in semi-permanent settlements and even occupied caves and open grounds. They believed in life after death, so they buried their dead with food and other goods. And guess what? They had these cool tools called microliths, which were miniature stone tools made of cryptocrystalline silica. Talk about innovation. They also started wearing clothes made of animal skin. But here's the really interesting part: they were art lovers and actually initiated rock art. And did you know that the first human colonization of the Ganga Plains happened during this period? During the Neolithic period, our ancestors transformed from food gatherers to food producers? It was a game changer. They used microlithic blades and polished stones as tools and weapons. But that's not all. They cultivated land, grew fruits and corn like ragi and horsegram, and even domesticated cattle, sheep, and goats. And guess what? Pottery became a thing too. They needed to store and cook their food, so pottery appeared on a large scale. From handmade pots to foot wheels, they did it all. The Neolithic Age was truly a time of innovation and progress. Fascinating, right?
In the Neolithic Age, people lived in houses made of mud and reeds. They were either rectangular or circular in shape. But that's not all. These clever folks knew how to make boats and even spin cotton, wool, and weave cloth. Talk about skills. Their settled lifestyle paved the way for the beginning of civilization. And then came the Chalcolithic Age, where metals started to be used alongside stone tools. Copper was the first metal to be used. Fascinating, right? This age mainly applied to the pre-hairpan phase, but it appeared in many parts of the country after the end of the bronze hairpan culture. Did you know that in the Chalcolithic Age, people were not only skilled in agriculture but also in cattle rearing? They domesticated animals like cows, sheep, goats, pigs, and even buffaloes. They hunted deer too. And when it came to food, they cultivated wheat, rice, bajra, lentils, black gram, green gram, and grass pea. Cotton was produced in the Deccan region, while ragi, bajra, and millets were cultivated in the lower Deccan. Pottery played a significant role too, with black and red pottery being widely prevalent. Ochre-colored pottery was also popular. But here's an interesting fact. Social inequalities began to emerge during this time. Chiefs lived in rectangular houses, while commoners lived in round huts. Fascinating, right? The Chalcolithic Age was truly a time of innovation and change.